Hello. So I hope that other participants will also be joining soon. So pertaining to this important aspect of this cloud security, I have emphasized on this IPS security where the IPS is not unlike means just like that the IPS services where the person who has to ensure the security of the society, the similar type of that things we do require so that the infrastructure platform and the software as a service if that is being required. So in that case, the the software which is to be used, how much that is being capable to make that system secure. So pertaining to that, the challenges are there where the diversity of the environmental diversity and the distance of the systems which are separated apart from one location to the another location. It is the task of the network operating center and its controllers to manage that the environment which is being used, the infrastructure which is being provided, and the software which are being used by the applicant that has to be properly secure. So the security is pertaining to the device which is being used, pertaining security is pertaining to that the channel which is being used, security is related to that the intermediate devices which are being used, which authenticate and which are having that task that any intruder or any other type of that materials activity if it has been there that has to be identified and that has to be protected. Like that, there are the certain type of that tools or that hardware software techniques that are also being available. One of them is already that is in our institute, which has been procured. That is called that SNORD, and it has been installed the hardware device which allows that the bottleneck and the proxy through which all those authentication is applied, and that allows the student and the faculty to log in, and the credential of that is to be verified, and after that the system will be accessed. Pertaining to that, the various type of the challenges that I have observed when I go for this video surveillance part of the MNIT, where multiple challenges were there for the movement of the people and monitoring and controlling them. Pertaining to that, the varieties of the researches are there, where some of my PhD scholars have gone through for identifying of the object, their path traversals, and the multiple objects if it is been there. In that case, some may be static, some may be moving. So in that case, which part will be have to include, which part they will have to exclude, what sort of the background is, how much the lumens is, whether that object is clearly identified or that has been uploaded, that means one is covered by the another, or some sort of the hiding. And in the case with multiple such sort of that applications pertaining to specifically this video surveillance that has been explored. So in that case, the important part of that surveillance was that creations of the video synopsis pertaining to that the live streaming which has been there. What are those key events that were there, and then the summary table pertaining to that is to be created. So in that case, the challenges are there that a similar type of this IPS solutions which are being provided by the multiple number of the agencies like the Amazon who is having this EC2, which allows that to be the infrastructure that need to be controlled. So in that case, the Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Digital OCNs, they are using this institute services for making the secure of their environment. And in this, that this environment which is being used. So as I said that there are the multiple number of that platforms, infrastructures, and that need to be protected. So my constraint is that if I am having a certain solution, let us say some software, or that the the multiple agencies who have those type of the solution available that need to be verified, and their performance has to be evaluated, and that need to be combined together. So complete bunch of that software which is not only used to manage this infrastructure, that their system should not be compromised. Those type of the challenges are there. Second is that the platform upon which that is to be maintained, like this beanstalk, elastic beanstalk, which is required by the Amazon, where that multiple virtual machine and the storage of the varieties of the applications that need to be managed and controlled. So these are the another challenges that need to be focused while using the cloud-based services. So three important services: infrastructure, platform, and the third is the software. So varieties of the softwares that are there. So if you go through this Office 365 software, I will give you this example that I was having this Microsoft Office, three files pertaining to that which I was using for the long period of the times. The latest software, antivirus software, when I tried to use that, it I it it removed those files which comes along with that package, which we referred that these are that package part, which is transmitting your information to that cloud server where this system is being controlled. So this type of that information, if it has been there, the user may not be needed not to be aware about that, and the system may get compromised. So likewise, any multiple variations of the softwares, if in combined that are being there in the computer system, the vulnerability and that exploitation of the resources and their performance that may be compromised by using the updated version of that software. So likewise, that many times you would find that it would ask you to update the software, and that compatibility would require the higher version of the hardware. And if that is not met, in that case, it will try to reduce the performance of the other software which are being installed. So something like that has been there. Something which is weird and is interesting that we had noticed that some company who used to provide a similar type of the solution for securing, maintaining, and ensuring that your system would be secure, it itself is creating some signatures which is need to compromise the other files, and that is what they were found and put behind the bar. So something like those type of the challenges are there, so that we need to be well aware that something like uh, the software which we are procuring, the hardware upon which we are using, and that updation versions, whether that would be compatible with that or not. And if it is not been there, in that case, we should completely deny any sort of that updations if it has been there. So, as a part of this software, we require to rely on majority of this office automation software and the fast communications with that any desk environment or the multi channel type of that environment like the Zoom, WebEx, and other Dropbox, or that Prime Video where that live streaming with that fast speed. So in that case, the bandwidth pertaining to that, it is expected and required, that need to be fixed. And if it has been compromised, in that case, your network would be slow, or your streaming or the performance which is you were expecting, that is being compromised. So pertaining to that, if something like which requires that enabling and securing of that information, something which need something that need to be done. Pertaining to this, like as I said, that the government agencies and their websites, they are much more vulnerable compared to that of the private organizations, where the challenges are there that all those websites which are being hosted or controlled by some autonomous agencies, regularly that are required to be tested pertaining to the links which have been there, pertaining to that the connectivity and the page crawling stages, that need to be controlled, and it should not to be compromised. It should not be updated without any proper authentications, and that should not be a replica of that where that a diversion would be there, and the resource who wants to use that, which is the term which I am using over here is referred to as a phishing. So if something like that, if it has been there, in that case, the more vulnerability are there. So challenges are there that having so sort of the scenario, how can I do or secure my system? So it is not necessary that I would be relying on the single software, but I do require to apply multiple sort of that applications which are to be combined together, and giving as a bunch of that software, antivirus or that protection software, which would be providing all sort of extra type of the security. Hello. वो पहले नहीं करी थी, अब करिए इसे चेक कर लो। सेकंड स्लाइड चेंज हुई नहीं हुई? एक मिनट। Is this slide visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, it's changing now.
I don't know इसमें क्या होता है कि जब फुल स्क्रीन पे कर देते हैं तो अगर वो लॉन्ग पीरियड तक रहता है तो वो बंद कर देता है शायद। So is this visible?
Yes, sir.
हाँ, इसमें क्या क्या नजर आ रहा है बताओ। Just first slide.
Cloud IPS security 87.5%.
Okay. Now I will continue. Thank you very much. So pertaining to this, what I have said that there are the three main infrastructure platform and the software as a service which we are that focus is to be pertaining to that how that cloud security can be provided. Now the security issues are 87.5%. The availability of such type of that systems which are the secure, that is 83, and the performance which are being it's compromised, that is giving only this 82%, 82.9, that means 83%. Remaining of this would be stated that are being compromised, or that need to be a proper solution pertaining to that should be there. So in that case, that the 88.6% stated that their cloud service providers need to provide better services, or that a service level agreement. That I seek a certain sort of that solution, cloud-based solution, having that resource and platform and infrastructure which is being provided, that has to be protected, and there must be some sort of that agreement that I should get, that it is that type of that security level that will be provided if I am using those type of the resources. So this is what has been stated, that these are those challenges which that has been given as a part of this white paper, stating clearly that the majority of the people who wants to use that cloud-based services, 88.6%, they say that the service level agreement is a more better way of ensuring that I would be getting the minimal security more than this 80% stated over here that need to be provided. So pertaining to this, that the challenge is what I have stated, I have shown in the previous slide also, this that having this, my view is that whatever that infrastructure, the software and the services, varieties of the ways that uptake could be there, and if that the solution which I am seeking, that the protection of the resources which is been provided to me should not be vulnerable, and this is what that the agreement level that need to be, and that has to be shared. So as I said that there are the multiple scenarios where that the cloud-based services can be there. So either I may be a end user where there would be the multiple number of the retailers who are having those type of that infrastructure available, those who may be having a supporting environment pertaining to that, and all those resources, infrastructure, and applications which are that has to be connected and provided to the end user. As a part of this consumer, the distributed environment for cloud-based services that has to be engineered in such a way that the solution which are being taken from the multiple service providers that has to be combined together and that need to be given. So here the customer management, their login means like login credentials, their log files, their transactions, their recordings, their at every interval what they have done periodically, the log file pertaining to that need to be created and that need to be stored, and all those the final updated and the intermediate stages once that has been verified that need to be uploaded, and this is the task of that the entire controlling system in the cloud system which has to manage that. So challenges are there that having this is not only pertaining to that the single person would have to control that, but there are the multiple uh, points which are being regularly controlling those type of that activities which are being occurring in the cloud-based network environment. So this is what has been stated over here, that some sort of that item master is creating some catalog, and the transaction which are taking place, some node is monitoring that rendering from whom that has been done, and that the replica of that has been there. And in that case, if this has been encrypted, in that case, that encryption, decryption, so that somewhere that has to be monitored and controlled, and some sort of that, because we do have a varieties of the ways of the data can be streamed. Either that may be of the text or video and image. Multiple ways, varieties of the data can be there. So in that case, it is a complex scenario where we require to manage that. So what are those, if I do require to seek those type of the solutions, to whom do I require, and what sort of that tool that I should search, which will be giving me that the best overall optimized solutions which can be used for my entire solution for my cloud-based environment. So environment comprises all these IPS type of data services, the solutions and their services, and the protection of that is needed. Okay, so in that case, normally we require to use that I do have a antivirus software which would have to look for any type of that antivirus if that is being that may be attached with the file or the folder or the image which I want to use, and or that has been downloaded if I am giving a simple command on the Google to see that the image of any person. Okay, if I say that HODC, CMNIT, to whom it will reflect, so there would be the multiple number of the images. Now, if that image which has been taken from that resource, if that has already been compromised, or that image if that is having some sort of that script in between as a part of that script which would trigger some sort of that unwanted applications on my system, which is a common scenario using the meta exploit we used to do that. So such type of that vulnerability may occur. So having that antivirus software, I would not confine to that limited of such type of activity. There could be that malware on the fish, whether I will be asked to test that the site which I am exploring, how much that percentage of that whether that is a certified one or not, whether that is having that secure channel or that HTTPS port 33 is there instead of port 80. And if that is a level A, level A plus or A or B type of that, the vulnerability assessment tools, which gives that labeling of the websites. So if it has been there, in that case, we can go through that. These are the sites which are secure, and I can use that for making some sort of that communication. Pertaining to that, as I said, that we need not require to confine on the single antivirus, whereas we require to use the bunch of that multiple type of the solutions. Pertaining to that, the analysis needed to be done that among them all, who would be the best, and if that are been there, in that case, can I take that multiple services from that multiple software tools and provide that to the cloud-based environment where those type of that best approaches of that protections can be entertained by that network service provider. So that he has to install that as a part of that solutions, and that not only will give this assurance to the end user that our network systems, these all the varieties of that software tools which are referred to as a common antivirus tools would be using for the multiple sorts of applications. Hello. So is this slide visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So pertaining to this, the challenges are there that I am having a networking solutions available or that environment with me where I'll have to look for the network cloud environment where I have the variations available with me, which need to be monitored and controlled. So I'm having the IPAs type of that environment. This may be of a hybrid in nature, public or the cloud, and it may be most of the cases we think that would be a distributed in nature. But in our institute, we have our own local cloud system. We have that is a private. We claim that that is a private. Some part of that can be put as an open code, which would be allowing the researchers to access that from his home, local who may be staying outside the campus, and he need not require to pay anything, and this would be that advantage. Now, how much that part has been assigned to him, and for how much the period that has to be that is to be given to him, and what type of that services that would be he would be used, how many number of the virtual machine, how much the core, how much the memory, how much the hardware that it would use to make his research program he would be asked to run and perform his research work. So pertaining to that, we may be having those type of that multiple sort of the scenarios. So likewise, as I said that the cloud-based antivirus has to provide the solution of all sorts of type of that antivirus, that signatures that may be transmitted, either that the file which are being transmitted over the channel, or some sort of that the malware, the intrusions pertaining to that, the script that has been written, so you may trigger some sort of that system command which would lead to activate other part to compromise the other services which are already been there in the cloud-based network system. So pertaining to that, variations of such type of that mode of compromise is there, and we require to have a solution so that it would not only protect the system, but it should not overburden the network or that system which are connected with the cloud-based system. Yeah. So now, as I give this example of this cloud AV, just one more. The cloud AV is a in cloud network based service which ought to be lightweight, and it is platform, it has to be platform independent. It must be having the multiple engines to run that and continuously monitor the different sort of the activities, and if it is being identified, in that case it has to trigger them and notify them that this may be vulnerable, this may likely to become a type of that virus, and it is your choice that if you try to access that or run that or execute that part, in that case that warning will be there, and if and you will have to ensure that that is a valid warning, or that is you will either will have to bypass that if you are well aware that this is coming from the proper channel. Likewise, it happens that our institute website was because for this HTTPS we requires to pay for that. So earlier that the payment was not made. So in that case, that port 80 was based HTTP service was there. So any user who wants to access the MNIT website mnit.ac.in, that was not allowing that to access or giving that message that this site is not protected and that is not secure. So some sort of that the browser like the that latest one, this Microsoft Edge or some other type of that browsers that indicates clearly that this site is vulnerable, so you should not go through that. So some sort of this search engines who used to do such type of that which already they perform such type of that protection mechanism, that entire script is with them. So every site which you want to access, I'll give this example of the DuckDuckGo. Have you heard about this? I'm writing this word over here. DuckDuckGo. Agam, have you seen this? Have you used this?
No, sir. Sir, I have.
So, so this is the search engine which is to be used. So unlike that has been there, like the Google or other, which keeps your record, and that is not in that what you say that in that illusion, and your information, your that log file that will not be transmitted to the other person. So pertaining to that, this is or the tracking of what you have done, that would not be there. So this is a very good platform one should use. So and this is a commonly being used by the majority of the people. So pertaining to this, the cloud AV or the cloud antivirus for the cloud-based network system, which is efficient in terms of that it is using the large database for almost more than 7,000 of the malware samples, which has been covered from the overall world, and it is giving a better coverage. So the things which is stated over here is that the performance and it's a lightweight term. The lightweight implies what? Agam,
Yes, sir.
if I
Yes,
say
sir.
that something is lightweight, implies what?
When something is lightweight, it means like it can be run on low constraint devices. Like
No,
ROS.
no, no. The amount of that execution time that does take place, that should be minimal. The
Yes, sir.
overhead pertaining to that software which is to be used, and the execution time of that must be faster. It should activate fast. So that is what the term lightweight is, that it requires the minimum memory space and it should execute fast. So pertaining to this, I will give this example of this ESET. So ESET is that software which also provided that cloud-based solution. In our institute, all those window-based systems which are there, most of the faculty members they are using. So for our department in the computer science and engineering, I was asked to procure that antivirus software. So in that, I tested the varieties of that software available, the software solution available, and check their performance benchmark with the multiple benchmark tools. And in that, which one would be the best suitable in terms of that lightweight, in terms of the signature values, how much in the how the solution that will be providing, and how much the periodically how much times that is updating itself and protecting the system. So in that case, the ESET was tested among them as the best one, and that was the very first time. You see, that was procured for the department for the 50 users. Later on, that was extended for the 150, and then it was extended for the 500 users and installed for the all the for and provided to the all the faculty members of the computer engineering department. Just hold on, yes. Already I have assigned the three groups. So pertaining to this, the challenges are there that the better that the solution that is and that collective solution if it is being provided, in that case, the 99% of the accuracy that should be there with that updated version of the solution. So pertaining to that, we need to pay for the cost. And nowadays, the challenges are there that for the past 2 years, we have not yet updated that ESET version. So the file is moving around, and I don't know where that is. It has been done. So the thing is that by having a collective type of that environment, which is mentioned over here, that there are the 12 engines which operates, which is been used as a part of this cloud-based antivirus, and the engines are Avast. You may be knowing AVG, Bitdefender, Calm AV, F-Prod, F-Secure, Kaspersky, McAfee, Symantec, and ESET, Trend, Micro, and multiple stuff of that, and the two behavior engine like the sandbox Norman and the CW sandboxes that are being used. So what sort of that the change in the behavior that is also been monitored by the two separate engines. So along with this cloud-based environment, I do require to run this engine. Engine implies that the daemon pertaining to that which comprises all this multiple varieties of this different software. Among them is that the best one is that the Symantec and the Kaspersky, along with this Avast and the F-Secure. So we used to use multiple varieties of similar type of data software way back. Now the McAfee is a challenging one because it ought to be free and it can be downloaded, but it is replicating its replica in that multiple folders and leave its signatures in the hidden files, which ought to be explored. If you want to choose another software, it does not allow. So such type of that problems pertaining to the McAfee is there. So the challenges are there that I do require to have a better mechanism of the efficient which work in the more efficient way. effectively and efficiently in the cloud-based networking environment. And being as an end user, I should least bother about those things that the rest of these things that requires to rely on that network service provider. So all those transactions, all those information which are being accessed through their channel and that network provider, that has to constantly be monitored and analyzed, and pertaining to that, if some vulnerability which has been created either using the malware or some manual attack, it has to quarantine them to protect the network system. So pertaining to that, the inversion protection systems where the varieties of these malicious activities pertaining to that are required to be monitored parallelly and constantly, and that need to be detected. And if that are being detected in the case which are creating the false injections of the packet, which are creating the self-generated code or creating that packet injections that is not that is not forwarded but is being created by that intermediate node itself. So that need to be identified that whether this source is beginning from that the some endpoint or it is between that node itself. So having that knowledge in that tabulation forms at the intermediate node or the router, which indicates that this switch which is pertaining to provide that connectivity itself is generating those type of that synthetically code. Without having that end node IP, it would have to restrict that particular code and or hibernate that node that and ask that the other network of controller or administrator to look into that what type of that problem that particular node is creating. And if it is malicious, it has to be discarded. Okay, so this is what that the protection that need to be. So as I said that the varieties of that malicious files can be there, which may arise from the different ways, different platforms, and the host engine or the host agent that has to exploit them and monitor them and state them whether they are safe or not. Once that has been called on as a in the safe state, that file would be transmitted to the network service and allow that to the end users to use them. So pertaining to that, the file which ought to be safe has to be analyzed to the network service engines, and there multiple all those group activities that has to be initiated, and it has to look for those type of that vulnerabilities. This part, pertaining to this part only, the majority of the work that goes on. Okay, I am stating this part. This part is that important one which has been used. Why it is not been covered? This part. Majority of the research work is currently going on in our department for this security analysis and creation of all different such type of that engines which will explore and manage them. And further thing is that synthetically we exploit them and make them vulnerable and then apply that solution that we have tested this type of that vulnerabilities, and now we can mitigate them with this type of the protection that need to be there with the network service provider. So likewise, as I said that for a popular antivirus software, it should not be confined to the one vendor, but it has to be a bundle. So here you can see that varieties of the source from the bundles are there with that updated versions, and there the periodically their updations are there, and that ought to lead that the better protection. The normal scenario is that having a 3-month of the period of the times. In that case, it is signifies that the 62% of that data that is that has been updated, and it would reduce the probability of getting compromised the system. So this is what that the the percentage of the detections that if we have a better version and all sort of this vulnerabilities if that are being tested and periodically that has been enhanced. So अगर मैं एक साल तक का पुराना पूरा सिग्नेचर वैल्यूज को कंबाइन करके और फिर मैं यूज करता हूं तो मैं क्लेम करूंगा कि मेरा 90% से ज्यादा मेरा सिस्टम सिक्योर रहेगा. अदरवाइज उस केस में अगर मैं शुरुआत में होगा तो उस केस में वो मेरे पास में सिग्नेचर वैल्यू नहीं है, मेरे पास में वल्नरेबिलिटी एनालिसिस का नहीं है, बट मैं उसको अपडेट करता जा रहा हूँ. फिर उसके बाद में ये सारे बंडल जो है ना वो अगर कंबाइन यूज कर रहा हूँ तो उस केस में यू कैन सी दैट हाउ दैट परफॉर्मेंस इज. So all these different type of the antivirus tools which are being used for the cloud-based systems, the latest of the latest is required in order to protect your system. So likewise, that periodically with this that fortnightly that a device is used to update their signature values, and that is what that desirability is. So if it automatically seeks that permissions from that the server system where that latest signatures are and that updated version, concurrent version system of the vulnerability assessment are lying over there. So the client node or that server of our institute, let us say that the ESET is installed in one virtual machine from where we require to take that updated version, and that updated version, that server system from the MNIT, which is connected to that ESET server, that remotely multiple servers are there. So it has to take that periodically that signatures and update its own database, and from where our node and node would seek that information and automatically update our system with that latest signature values. So this type of the hierarchy is there in the cloud-based environment where the system is better protected. So as I said that I do have the varieties of the applications that may be related to that autonomous system under some government agency which requires to have that this strict enforcement and the protection mechanism so that any other people from the mostly just say Chinese and that Pakistani or some other European countries, the people who try to hack our system and make this SQL injections or some sort of that false pinging and some sort of that message which you, if you would just accept that, it would activate some functions and that will call that hash that shell script which will run based on that compatibility of your system and would lead to compromise the system. So something like that is there. So a simple sort of this example is there. If I'm having a program where the two type of that programs are there. One is the system program, one is the application program. If the application program who is having a lesser priority and having that system program which would lead to get a trigger, so in that case, that the system command would ensure that it is a higher priority task that need to be completed. Pertaining to that, the authentication, if it is not being needed, that priority task of that system would activate other command to make that system compromise. So the hierarchy pertaining to that may be from the multiple sort of the applications or the task which would seek consist out of that activations either that program which would be in that infinite no loop or no operations that will reduce the or the compromise the system performance, or some sort of that unwanted command which would delete some sort of the files or some sort of the directory or some uh, changes in the program. So in that case, if the system is fast, if the system is high speed, and if that vulnerability pertaining to that the different platforms are there, if you have put the channel open, if you have the programs are there, that whether that the authentications are compromised, can be compromised, or that are that vulnerability or the port are open where the intruder can come and perform different type of the task, and the task will become much easier if the high speed data is provided. So in that case, the challenges are there, so that in what fashion and in what way I should manage them. The challenges pertaining to this is much more in that high speed networking environment. So what is expected? Expectation is that my controlling environment should be fast. So my IT administrator has to constantly observe and manage them and strictly enforce the security and protect the software. And I do seek the better environment and the solutions to protect the overall network system, cloud-based network system. Okay, is it visible? Agam?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So now, as I said that in an enterprise network system, like in the MNIT, I seek that the good network service should be there. So 10 gig, 10 gig, 10 gig, 10 gig, 40 gig high speed switch based network solution is being provided, where this 10 gig is being provided to the department, 10 gig is provided to the hostel, 10 or the 20 gig is provided to the department, 10 gig is provided to the different hostels, and that has been also in the share mode. So at least means 200 Mbps or the 100 Mbps type of that speed that would be achieved at that level. So in that case, the latency, high speed and network implies the lower latency, high speed, and the better bandwidth. So this is what the network is. Now in this, the constraint pertaining to that, the bottleneck, if I am taking the services from the internet service provider, and that bottleneck is that I do only have that 10 gig of that speed. So what would happen that if I'm only using the 10 gig and providing the 40 gig services to the, so that is not there. So in that case, multipurpose node and that division of that should be provided in such a way that each of the domain and that or that the area where that connectivity, the 5 links are there, so they would get that 10 gig of that speed. So in that case, the MRTG, multi relay traffic graph, that would have to monitor constantly that which one of that area is getting how much that speed. So in that case, and sometimes because when you are using the access point which allows the 100 users in that a, a, a combined solution that it would not allow more than 100 users to access that, and that should be also in that shareable mode. So in that case, the speed of that would be compromised. One channel, yeah, or the one slot would be having that one MB of the speed. So some user based on that applications would require that I do require to have the minimum 2 slots for my services. In that case, whether that would be able to access that or not. In that case, some gaming application requires the 5 slots or more than that. So in that case, the high-speed solutions where that less number of the users are connected with would be only able to provide some sort of the solutions. Most of the cases in that gaming services, independent user seeks that the entire bandwidth should be provided for their solution so that they can work. So majority nowadays that high speed 300 Mbps of that access point solutions are being normally being provided in India, and likewise that is also been there in my house where that I have to pay 1,000 rupees per month to get that solution. So the challenges are there that how much that amount you can pay and what type of the services that you see pertaining or how much the speed that you require. अब मेरे पास में अगर 4K का टीवी है और I want to run that 8K of that screen image services, that would not be able to do that. But if that the 8K of the monitor is there and my device which would be having that 300 Mbps of that service or that 1 gig speed, in that case only I would be able to use that the better picturization, visualizations and executions of the different applications. So this is what, and pertaining to that I need to pay for that. So these are the amount of the money is that bigger challenge that you want to use that. In that case, the price is, you need to pay for that. So pertaining to that, the challenges are there that having such sort of the environment where I'm sitting, which is a public platforms, and that web service or that applications which ought to be related to that organizations where you are working, you require to have that credentials and login to that public node or public network environment to go to that secure network and access that. In that case, the vulnerabilities are there. In that case, you need to be very much careful, or the controller who is monitoring and seeing that this person is using that in common public platforms where the other would also be accessing, trying to access that. And in that case, if it is such type of that vulnerabilities are there, in that case, it has to manage that properly or to inform that properly to get that you should not use that and go to the secure network environment and use this. So something like that is there where that broadband services which are to be accessed in that case proper authentications and transmission and using that minimal required speed if that is to be used, and that the protection scenario which is been provided over there, only those type of that networking environment should be used. And the carefulness has to be done while using such type of that network environment. But हमें क्या है, हमें तो सिंपल सा करना है, कोई भी मतलब हो जहाँ फ्री मिले नेटवर्क that we have to use. And once you go through that, in that case, all those information which you do possess, any access or triggering of any button which you may feel that is been there in or that entire screen of that may be giving that a user which can be as a part of that button, and you unwantedly make that trigger and your device will be compromised. So something like that, because in this mobile networking environment, it is more vulnerable and the more threats are there, and a lot of challenges are there. Many such sort of that similar type of the work in the IoT based device and the vulnerability assessment in that the mobile devices that are there. So in that case, occlusion of the information with that information you are transmitting, you know, in that piggybacking mode that can be there, and the exchange of the information, the data which may also be had by the other people's and may notice that what sort of that activity that you have done. So something like that is more critical and critical. So it is important that while using the mobile devices in that open network environment, you should be much cautious. So pertaining to that, the end version of this antivirus are there, where that the the latest version gives that the better protection, and you can see that the 96% of that protections is being provided if that with that multiple number of this sort of the antivirus tools, and that all of this has to be combined together. And you can see that this multiple devices, if they are being used in combinations like this in the seventh point, 96.23, this combined together, if you are combining as a bundle pack, is giving this 90% of this accuracy. And even though the other one which can also be added, in that case this performance is still 96.23, implying what that these are that the least minimal number of that software which is giving me this highest detection and the protection of the cloud-based environment. Even though the other agencies who are also having that solution, if I combine them together, would not, or that implies that I am also paying to them, but that would not lead to that better protection, implying that these are sufficient enough, and that are periodically updating themselves and giving that the best solution available. So and कितने हुए, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, ओके, और ये है डिटेक्शन कवरेज ऑफ द मालवेयर सैंपल यूजिंग बिटवीन 1 and 8. तो 8 में तो सारे आ गए इसके अंदर, तो 7 तक का है, तो 7 में ये आपके सारे जितने भी प्रोडक्ट है दैट इज प्रोवाइडिंग दिस सॉल्यूशन. सो the environment where it has to state that how many number of the malwares are there and how many of them have been detected. So sometimes I may feel that this particular files may be vulnerable. I will give that explicit assignment to check that whether this particular file is vulnerable or not, or that may be having certain sort of that signature values, that may be having some sort of that malware attached with this, with it. So in that case, the explicitly either the bunch of that files or the folder or individual one, I can assign to the system, and it has to operate and apply all sort of that mechanism to explore that the type of the vulnerability threats, and test that and give that answer to the end user. Likewise, I used to do that a certain sort of the file. If that has to be accessed from one system or one pen drive, in that case, I will put that individually that this file, if I put that on my system, that is vulnerable or not. So I will ask that and activate my searches on my antivirus to explicitly explore that files for its vulnerability and give me that answer that whether that file is safe to open or not. So pertaining to that, the challenges are there that the varieties of the solutions, if that exist, I should go for them and give that better solution to the end user. Now, pertaining to that, as I said, that the huge amount of the money that is being spent pertaining to that, the vulnerability assessment and the security of the system. So, in that case, the $40 billion that has been increased by the agencies. So, ये आपका 2020 का data है, which is showing that huge amount of the money that has been spent over there to increase the accessibility and the providing of the services for the better mechanism. And in that case, some of them are more vulnerable, some and are able to exploit the vulnerabilities. Other ones are less less able to explore the vulnerabilities. तो यहाँ पर number of the vulnerabilities that are increasing, that means that this particular is the severity of this has been highly compromised if such type of data software is being used. So in that case, Fraud and AVG and Bitdefender are much better compared to the other one. Now, as I said that in the cloud-based networks environment, I may be having a varieties of the platform, the operating systems which provides this services like the Zen-based system. So Zen is the software upon which that the multiple operating systems that can be put into and multiple virtual machines that can be created. The hypervisor allows me to have a varieties of the platforms, virtual machine-based platforms, where I can use any type of that applications or the compatible with that विंडो-बेस्ड एप्लीकेशन में तो विंडो पे चलेगी, लिनक्स बेस्ड है तो लिनक्स पे चलेगी, और दूसरा जो है वो अगर फ्री ओएस है, कोई आप अपनी मर्जी से यूज करना चाहता है तो वो आप उसमें यूज कर सकते हैं। तो कितना नेटवर्क है, कितना स्टोरेज है, कौन कौन से उसमें कंपेटिबिलिटी इश्यूज आएंगे, ड्राइवर्स कहाँ यूज करना है, वो सारे के सारे उससे रिलेटेड जो प्लेटफॉर्म से रिलेटेड आपको वो उसमें मिल जाएंगे। तो इसमें Linux is much protected. Other based system जो है वो आपका that are also provide the better protections. Majority of this vulnerability issues were there with that window. Nowadays, these are much protected. So the issues in this cloud is that the challenges or issue in the cloud is that security is the highest concern. Performance would be compromised based on this. Security, availability of the resources is again pertaining to that. We have, and I give the example of the proper load balancing of the information, where having that load balance environment, the execution of the task would be faster, implying that in the lesser time that a task would be executed. Pertaining to that, varieties of the solutions that I have already explained. Pertaining to that, the further enhancement that we have gone through by using the nature-inspired algorithm. Like I do have the variety, multiple number of the clusters. Among them clusters, which one would be the machine would be the best possible solutions for the applications pertaining to that I seek the solution in the cloud-based environment. So in that case, it has to look among those clusters and identify those machines which is the best suitable for me. This is what we have gone through for making that the explorations for the such type of that cloud-based distributed cluster-based hierarchical-based disjoint-based and multi-mode type of that environment where I'll have to look for the best solution. So something that sort of that work pertaining to that still lot of better optimization techniques that would be existing, and we'll have to get the solution for that. So still that research is currently going on. Now, some sort of that solution can be there with those constraint based type of the scenario. Like मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है, मुझे तो रिसोर्स चाहिए, मेरे को तो बेटर परफॉर्मेंस भी चाहिए, और सारा नेटवर्क मुझे सिक्योर चाहिए, मैं कोई फ्री नेटवर्क यूज नहीं करूंगा, मेरा काम चलना चाहिए, मेरे को तो इसी पीरियड में सारी चीजें मिल जाए, मैं तो दूसरे पे रिलाई नहीं करूंगा, और मेरे को तो यही काम करना है, मैं तो उधर करूँ ही नहीं, मैं तो जाऊँ ही नहीं ऑफिस में, मैं तो यही करूंगा। अब उस केस में क्या करोगे आप? तो वहां पर आपका सिक्योरिटी इश्यूज आएंगे, परफॉर्मेंस इश्यू आएंगे, आपकी अवेलेबिलिटी इश्यूज आएगी, आपका जो बैंडविड्थ इश्यूज आएंगे, आपका जो सिस्टम आप जो है वो शेयरेबल मोड पे ले रहे हो तो वो आपका यूज आएगा, उसमें आपको खुद की जेब से पैसे देने पड़ जाएंगे, वो आपका डिस्टेंस मैटर करेगा कि आप कहाँ पे उसको यूज कर रहे हो, घर में यूज कर रहे हो तो नॉइस अलग से रहेगा, सेफ इन्वायरमेंट में विदाउट नॉइस इन्वायरमेंट में यूज कर रहे हो या नहीं कर रहे हो, अगर आप बाजार में नजदीक में किसी दुकान पे बैठ के कर रहे हो वहां का नॉइस आपको परेशान करेगा. So those type of that multiple sort of the scenarios are there, and you have to look into all these things while making those type of the solutions which ought to be used by the industry and some research organization. So in this, the security issues in the general web service is that authentication that a system may get bypassed. अब उसमें आपका IP spoofing है, MAC spoofing है, आपका hacking of the IP address, इसमें खाली Linux से सबसे ज़्यादा जो है वो आपका vulnerability को exploit करके और आपको बताता है कि कौन सा network compromise है, that you can use that. उसमें ढेर सारी एप्लीकेशंस उसमें लिखी हुई है. Just execute them and see that whether the system can easily be compromised. With authorizations है तो उस केस में आपने अगर आपने ABCD दे रखा है या आपने एड्रेस बिल्कुल कॉमन दे रखे हैं, है ना, अगर सम मल्टीपल यूजर को सेम एक्सेस दे रखा है तो डेलीगेशंस ऑफ द यूजर्स ये भी यूज कर रहा है वो भी यूज कर रहा है, एक सिस्टम को 10 जने यूज कर रहे हैं, whether the data which has been transmitted encrypted है या नहीं है, कौन सा इंक्रिप्शन मैकेनिज्म इसमें यूज में आ रही है. तो उस केस में मैंने मिडिल अटैक का विद दैट इंक्रिप्शन जो मैंने टू की इंक्रिप्शन एल्गोरिथम में मैंने चारों इंक्रिप्शन एल्गोरिथम के बारे में आपको मैंने बताया. कौन कौन सा बताया? मैंने बताया आपको RSA, ECC, डेफी-हेलमान एंड अल्जमान, है ना, और उनमें वेलनरेबिलिटीज होती हैं तो उसमें कितने परसेंटेज हम उसको सिक्योर कर सकते हैं, कौन कौन से टाइप के अटैक हो सकते हैं, उसमें एक्सप्लिसिटली मैंने मैन इन मिडिल अटैक के बारे में आपको बताया. तो अब इसमें है कि वो मैसेज है तो वो रिसीविंग फ्लो के पार्ट में वो इंटरप्रेट में जा रहा है नहीं जा रहा है, वो करेक्टली उसको रिसीव कर पा रहा है नहीं कर पा रहा है, whether that he is happy with that message which is been received or that is compromised, and for how much, for how long that the person is been able to access that network, whether that period is completed or not, pre-warning of that has been assigned or not, something like the challenges are there. So in that case, when we go for this weak authorization, so what we state that in that case, the privilege pertaining to that authentication, either that can be leveraged, that means that you are compromising that, and some other people who are nearby to them maybe visualizing and observing you. In that case, the authentications and the compromise of that can be there, and the data can also be tampered or some sort of this luring attack. And pertaining to this, you have to see some sort of this movie, latest like Mission Impossible type of where they are giving that complete parallel environment, which giving this illusion so that they are in that, and the systems which are the so-called the most protected in that protected environments would get attacked, and the accessibility of such devices can be made. So something like this are those challenges pertaining to, and these are the certain sort of that examples like which are being used in the picture, like Man in Mission Impossible, like other Sherlock Holmes or the latest one. I usually do not see such type of the pictures. काफी टाइम हो गया देखे हुए, बट उसमें ये सारी चीजें बताई जाती है कि किस तरीके से ये सिस्टम को हैक किया जा सकता है, ब्रीच किया जा सकता है, उसको अटैक किया जा सकता है. एंड तो उसमें दूसरी चीज है आपकी eavesdropping. Eavesdropping means someone who is hearing and monitoring or using their camera or mobile devices, and your data can be, or your key which you are putting, or your fingers movement on your mobile devices that can be easily first observed, and then the device can be easily opened. So in that case, if that restrictions, if you are not putting pertaining to that the face recognitions or the fingerprint, in that case the system would be vulnerable. So multiple ways of such type of that take authentications that has to be put in order to make the better securement. So here the brute force approach has to be applied to avoid this brute force attacks. That I do require to have this multiple authentications leading to that if some breach of that can be there in that, or which are being applied in that case, still that the system can be protected. Likewise, you may have seen that in the Rajnikant movie, once movie थी वो शिवाजी, क्या नाम था अगम? हेलो,
Shivaji the boss.
हाँ, शिवाजी द बॉस. तो उसमें उसका सिस्टम तो उसने ही protected in that voice protection mechanism, additional things he has put. So in that case, the person who tried to make that alluring and trying to make his voice that was the system was efficient enough that he identified that this type of the attack is there, and it destroyed all those files. So something like that is there to make that better system secure. Or in that case, majority of this is that if some attacks is coming from the varieties of the ways to a one node itself, in that case, that would be implied that brute force attack, and the network should the network should halt or stop all those ports through which that attack is going currently coming. And this can be done by the automatic way, or that can be done manually by the person who is constantly monitoring. So early warning system has to be made in such a way that something like that attack, if it is been there, in that case the system should be able to defend it. Now likewise, Arjun and Agam, suppose there are two systems which are connected openly, and brute force attacks like some of the antivirus which are there with these systems detect that this particular malware has came from this node, the end user node whose IP and the MAC address is attached with that. Again, that some sort of another type of that attack is been there related to the files, or that using that meta-exploit image. In that case, the multiple that would be considered as a multiple attack coming from the same node. Okay, or that cluster-based type of that node. Suppose the MNIT is the one where 100 of the users working in the lab and been asked to attack some outside agency, some website. So they will attack that using the SQL injection, using the meta-exploit, using that signature values, using some malware, or using that middle type of that attack with that smart sending that a signature, a similar type of that traffic patterns. So in that case, if that node which has been attacked, that would see that this MNIT port address 202.162.16 dot whatever that number is, 14 अपने वेरिएशन है इसमें, उनमें से कौन से वाले में आ रहा है, तो ये MNIT से आ रहा है. तो वो क्या करेगा उस केस में, वो पूरा MNIT को ब्लॉक कर देगा. You may have seen this with this IEEE, too much requests are coming from the MNIT. It will hard. It is being used by the Turnitin in that too much applications are being receiving from the same agency or organization whose address is specific. MNIT.ac.in इसका IP address ये है, और यहाँ से ये multiple requests आ रही है, block it. एक ही साइट से, मान लो जैसे IEEE की कोई कॉन्फ्रेंस की, मेरे को मल्टीपल जितने भी वहाँ पे पेपर्स जो पब्लिश हुए वो मुझे डाउनलोड करने, मेरे वो आकाश ने वो स्क्रिप्ट लिखी, उसने रन करा के सारे डाउनलोड रहेंगे। आफ्टर 10 पेपर डाउनलोडिंग के बाद में उसने केस ब्लॉक कर दिया। ये सारे के सारे जितने भी है ना, ये एक से आ रहे हैं एंड दैट हैज टू बी स्टॉप। वो उसने ब्लॉक कर दिया कि नाउ आई कैन नॉट एक्सेस दैट साइट। So something sort of that protection is needed in that, so which are referred to as a directory or sorry dictionary attack. Okay, others are that cookie replay attack. That the cookies with the multiple requests pertaining to that which has already been done, that are been initiated, and this has done interestingly some sort of this example. So that was I saw in the YouTube some child in while staying in the house give this request to the Google Cloud, and he said that okay Google, give me this doll and some cookies, and that order was placed to the Amazon. Amazon passed that to the other, that this has come from this house, and that cookies to that localized vendor, he delivered that to the uh, those children, so that child which was staying in that house. So their parents were shocked that how this would be possible, that without our authentication, without our permissions, that the child would be able to access that. And the entire research pertaining to that was made, that why, how this, and in what way this type of that things has happened. It could happen that infinite such type of that request would be created from the multiple source, and that type of that delivery request may be generated and sent that. तो उस केस में तो वो सारा लुट जाएगा, तो उसको कैसे वो authenticate करे. So in that case, the credentials are very much important to identify that whether they are valid or not. So pertaining to that, the challenges are there while using such type of such type of that cloud-based services and the environment, where that information has to be multiple stages, that has to be authenticated and then passed for the final acknowledgement. Now, image encryptions, the message may be not recognized, and some other persons may theft that there are the men in middle type of the attack, and multiple requests can be there. As I give this example, so that one that child has done this multiple number of the requests. उसने एक बार केक मंगाया, एक बार डॉल मंगाई, एक बार उसने कुछ पिज्जा मंगाया विद मतलब विद दैट कुकीज, और वो जो आपका टॉफी वगैरह होती है ना वो, तो इस तरीके का, तो वो चीज है कि भाई एक बच्चा रिक्वेस्ट भेज रहा है और वो चैनल उसको साइडलाइन कर रहा है बाकी सारी चीजों को, और वो टास्क वो डिलीवर हो रहा है, तो उस केस में इस तरीके की vulnerability which have been compromised at that multiple ways. Now here in this case is that if I am having a such type of that Google clock along with me, that Google clock is connected for accessing the other Google clocks or similar type of that device. If that is in the range of 1 kilometer, they would also be making that cluster and connected with the and compiling the information and sending to the server system. So in that case, much more vulnerabilities are there which has to be stopped. And in that case, we do not have any option. The device is there, operating system is there, the tool is there, that that way of the communications and their processing, that software is there. Nothing is over. Only that as being as an end user, I have to make that request, and that can also be compromised. That can also be made in the multiple ways. So in that case, that the trust is the only way where we can have to make it. And in that case, the there must be certain policies pertaining to that the services which is been provided and that need to be protected. So there are the very less stuff of that the policies are there and the government and the third party agencies that are working hard in order to make the by exploring all these different type of the multiple scenarios where the compromise can be made and they are doing harder to make the accountability pertaining to the systems which are vulnerable to get compromised. So in that case, the varieties of the ways I give that example so that the multiple sort of the request through the mobile using this extended markup language that can be there, alternate path the message can be received, so the path can be compromised, and this is why I am stating that while going or moving around that public area, uh, the advertisement and the request and the offer that can be uh, passed on your WhatsApp number if you have opened that your mobile network access. And I have seen myself so that while moving around the GT, multiple such type of that request that has that my device received with the offers that are being provided by the local vendors and the showroom. So in that case, being or having such sort of that scenario, my software in my mobile that must be well aware. It has to protect my device. It has to protect the such sort of the activities and block all those type of that group commands or that group messages. And if the third party like वो क्या कहलाता है वो आपका क्या कहलाता है एड्रेस आइडेंटिफाई करने वाला ट्रू कॉलर. ओके, दे गिव्स दैट ये एक मालवेयर है, ये एक आपका स्पैम है, ये एक आपका इसको ओपन मत करो क्योंकि वो बैंकिंग सर्विसेज से या अदर थर्ड पार्टी से वो क्योंकि वो कहीं से भी वो आपका इंफॉर्मेशन वो ले लेते हैं और आपका उनको पता लग जाता है आपके पास कितने पैसे हैं, आपके आपने लास्ट परचेज क्या करी थी, उससे रिलेटेड जितने भी चीजें हैं उसके ऑफर हैं वो एडवर्टाइजमेंट आपके चालू हो जाते हैं. Likewise, if I am stating over here, if the network is on, in that case, pertaining to the topics which I say that, let us say I say that, use this example. I just open my mobile and seek this information that, let us say that I have opened my Facebook now, and I am now discussing about that the best hair cutting salon is nearby to my location I seek, which would be the best and having the a offer for the coloring of my hair and some sort of that additional services that can be provided. So if I seek that, that would be the best one. मुझे चाहिए best salon आसपास में अगर मेरे को मिल जाए तो बढ़िया होगा. Okay, this is what I have stated. I'm just waiting for that whether that pertaining to that the message would appear in my Facebook or not. If it has been there, in that case, I would say that my system is compromised. Okay, so this is what that the thing is that the session hijacking, man you know, and some sort of this request which are being transmitted over that multiple people and that has been shared and pertaining to that the extracted information related to that would be advertised by scrolling that network and I would be able to see that. So something like that is the more chances of getting knowledge of making the compromise of the system. Now another is this the attack on the XCP through the web services. So there's the multiple such type of that the web services, the self services, the vulnerabilities are there, and uh, and the system can get easily compromised. So self-services implies that the guest machine to months that has been covering the log pertaining to that has already been there, and it would be having those type of uh, the cookies pertaining to that type of the request which has been provided, and that will be passed on to the other nodes which would transmit that that request to that multiple guests to the machine who has to seek that information. So in that case, the unauthorized, unauthenticated request would come or arise to your platform, making you the more vulnerable. So in that case, the having that multiple number of the platforms, so that the system has to be looked into while making that services, whether that has been compromised or not, and if it has been compromised, so in that case, the blocker or that the proper mechanism pertaining to that attack has to be minimized using the services. So here is that the client system can be compromised, cookies may be transferred. So this is the platform or that either this Edge or Chrome uh, type of the platforms you would be using that has those type of the vulnerabilities. I give this example that if you are using sort of that other platforms like Atom and other one, which not only restrict that and protect you and allow you in the most hibernated mode and would not allow that third party compromise or the transfer of the cookies. So challenges are there where the system has to be explored and XCP has to be installed in the system so that the client who is using those type of the services would not be able to get the attack. Okay, so here are the certain sort of that snapshot which are required to be run at the server side and at the client side, and that shows that the exploiting of the systems using this meta exploit, it says say that it is a costly software, 35 lakh with the single users, and that is with that restrictions that it should not be used only for the research purposes. It has to be used, and that it can be used. So as you can see over here, that the client who is having data sessions with that password and their retrievals, it will give that information and the system can be compromised. So varieties of the ways that are been there where it gives that explanations or that explorations that in what ways you can make that device vulnerable, and the files can be transmitted and that can be activated and the system can be optimized. So way back in 2002, using this Visual Sim, the client server based type of the architectures where the proxy was not there. So that the files as a part of that server was initiated as a background services at the one node, and other was as a client who used to see that node resources. One student was triggering the open the flip flop, open that CD and or open this application, the other user who was sitting on that other system, he was annoying that how this CD was opened and how this particular file has been opened without knowing that in the background those type of the services has been initiated by the remote systems, and the using that any days type of that applications like you may be well aware about nowadays commonly being used, that was initiated way back 22 years back that was explored. So something like that is now being common nowadays and more sophisticated, and that vulnerable type of making the vulnerable system such type of that uh, solutions are already there where for source of the testing and managing that the user can test. So the tool is a part of the tools that are available, and it gives you the exposure so that having some sort of the scenario, what mechanism should I adopt so that the system can be protected. So in that case, the Zen-based services are sometimes that are vulnerable and requires to have the better cloud-based EV tools to make it secure so that the vulnerability can be avoided. So something like this a denial of the service is another type of that attack. You may be aware. Denial of the service. One example that I would give. In our institute, there is a one server where that exhaustively multiple virtual machine has been installed using this Zen server. I went over there and asked that this virtual machine, which has been allotted to me, having this 50 GB of the space, 72 number of the core, or certain that fixed number of the core, and that has to be activated where that particular application which ought to be in that running mode, now it is in the hibernated mode. They said that this is already in the shutdown, and when they tried to upload that, the system denied that. So this is what that denial of the service. What it is stated that this service is already too exhaustive to use the additional type of the service, blocking that, not allowing that virtual machine. That implies that server is exhausting enough, having the multiple number of the virtual machines that is already running. The other machines cannot run, otherwise that system would get collapsed, or that will again go into the hibernate state. So these type of the services has been there somewhere in that the system may explicitly assign that this part of the services should be avoided and that should not be allowed. So in that case, the inhibiting that port through which that application has to be activated or should run, the port is disabled and that would not be allowed to be used. So some sort of that examples are there where in that network environment, the varieties of the ways are there where that the system can be compromised. So in that case, the excessive transmission of the data, which is referred to as a bursty mode of the data transmission, where that packet injections can be done from the multiple picking from the multiple nodes. So how that has to be restricted. So in that case, depending on the type of that packet, the size of this packet, likewise, in order to make the pinging, I restricted that the size of that ping should not be more than the 64 byte rather than the 2 MB. If it is of the 2 MB and I see that in finite mode, it has to run on the system to check that whether that node is active or not. So in that case, to look for that request and run that for that 2 MB data and send that back to me, and I repeat that 1,000 number of times, that system would only be doing this. So that would imply that that system is compromised. So in order to mitigate that, what should I do? I will have to curtail that process of testing that whether that device is active or not. It is normal scenario where we have to look for the device whether that is connected or not. So in that case, having that node available with me, I will have to test that, but that node is distinct that the ping request should be of the 64 and maximum that should be of the 3 number of the time. That's okay. Otherwise, sometimes that may seek of the 6 number of time or the 9 number of time, more than that it does not allow. So something that is the way of restricting the flood of that information. Another example that I should give that if pertaining to this node pinging is to be there, or the broadcast message pertaining to that system live or not, or updating of the information at that intermediate routing table, if that is to be requested, in that case, the traversal of that packet has to be restricted, that it should not go more than the 3 hop count or the 6 hop count. The maximum hop count is the 16 in the networking environment. That packet can travel up to that 16 number of the nodes, and after that it will be discarded. And likewise, if I can restrict that this pinging or that information pertaining to the searching of that site through that DNS node, it should not be more than the 3 DNS, and it has to be restricted. And if it is found, that is okay, otherwise that will be discarded. So something restriction pertaining to that has to be done, and that is there in this networking environment. ये आज के टाइम पर ये एग्जिस्ट करता है, आपको वो अलाउ नहीं करेगा कि आप इस तरीके से फ्लडिंग कर दो, नहीं तो सभी इस तरीके से करने लगे तो नेटवर्क यूं जाम हो जाएगा. तो वो एक कंसर्न देता है ना कि having such type of that environment with the window based system or the Linux based system or that server based system where that VMware or the Zen server systems who has to perform such type of the attack and test them and see that the vulnerability should not be there. So the spoofing of the MAC spoofing, as I said, that the spoofing can be done with that the port spoofing, port number spoofing, IP address spoofing, MAC address spoofing. Okay, so in that case, it requires to have the HTTPS based services, secure based services, third party authentication based network based services, and that has to give this assurance while using any sort of the browser, that will be get authenticated. The signature certificate value that has to be provided, that has to be attached with that the lock mark and indicate that this is the protected site, and that signature values and its the certificate value or the number that can be visualized and user can use that. So such type of that services that are nowadays are being common and making the system more secure, and pertaining to that, still there are the multiple vulnerabilities are there where the intermediate nodes where the compromise can be there that can be exploited, and related to that the research there. Some example pertaining to that I have mentioned in my earlier talk, and there it shows that the script which you run would lead to the compromise by making those type of that the vulnerabilities using this port at 80 HTTP port with that the port number and the redirections of that can be there. So redirections, any port if it has been available in that case that can be used. So as I said that the all port which are provided, only those which are to be used and restricted to be used, that has to be mentioned. Rest of them has to be blocked. They should not be provided without any permission, without any authentication. If missing any part of that, using this sort of the command will be giving that exposures that these number of the ports are available and that can be exploited. And using that, the attack can be made and the device can be compromised. So likewise, it has been mentioned over here that the main in middle attacks with those number of the numbers and the type of that attacks that the pairing of that can be done, and the results are there that the HTTP, if that has been converted to the HTTP, would give that system compromise. Now another thing which is this with this ARP3, where the single persons can apply or require the multiple requests to the multiple number of the server nodes. So unlike that in the previous type of this ARP, okay, yeah, okay. So in that case, the system are the only this one node with that another node has to connected, and they will have to make that communication. Nowadays, the multiple nodes can be connected, multiple server connected with that a single node, to make that type of the communication. So the malware injection is nowadays the common scenario where that entire bunch of that information block that can be injected to make that the system exploit. And in that the service pack 3 was there, or that was updated to make that more security based solutions that the Microsoft provided, that while exploring this type of the attacks are there and the system is vulnerable. So in that case, the window has updated itself. So nowadays, the latest window-based services are well protected, and that ensures that we need not pass to use the third-party software to protect our system. So it gives this type of the protection applications, MSI, Microsoft service bunch of that which is to be installed in the computer system. So automatic system, if that has been initiated, that gives this sort of the protection. Now, in that cloud system, also the malware injection attack is also been there. So having this, you can see over here that the system is that shows that this is the once that attack is being injected, the system indicates that this has been compromised. Okay. So I will not go for that. Means some of the expert who will show you in the practical implementation of the malware injections and the vulnerability and how that can be compromised. That cannot be done under this live system environment, which has been shown over here. But the similar type of that can be simulated over the system, and the solution can be tested and that can be shared. So the environment can be shared in that virtual environment, and the vulnerabilities pertaining to that can be exploited. And the research scholar Madhav Khatri, are you connected? Agam?
Yes, sir.
Give this challenge to the this vulnerable man-in malware attack injection in that secure cloud-based environment. That if that has been there, in that case, what would be his load performance algorithm would be if that the compromise pertaining to this malware injection can be made. That is there. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay.
हाँ हाँ तो उसमें ये है कि I may be having some sort of this varieties of the ways where that the attack can be possible, and my system should be sufficient enough. Either I do require to have this third-party antivirus solutions that need to be installed along with the server systems, or I will have to look into each and every sort of type of an environment which may not be possible. So all those data centers who are using the virtual environment, either using the VMware or the Zen systems or the other hypervisors, high performance computing systems, they'll have to install in addition to their service providing tools in one system which has to be used for exploiting and seeing all sort of the vulnerabilities and provide the more secure and send that end users that your network was attacked by this which you have earlier used and you should not you should not go for using those type of that environment or ask them to get a secure so that the entire environment from the source to destination must be much secure. So if that entire solution pertaining to that cloud-based environment is if it is been taken, so in that case only that would rely on that end user part that I am having a mobile or the IoT device through whom which I am connected through whom I am connected with the cloud-based network system. So that middle that edge-based network should be protected. Okay, so in that case, I can give that the log information, authentication informations, and the proxy through which that log file has to be transmitted with that multiple authentications, giving that assurance that my node will not be giving that unwanted messages or that false signals or that the virus signature values or the certain bunch of the data which is not expected to be used by the end user. So something like if it has been there in that case, the warning has to be issued to the end user, and that has to be done by the cloud antivirus or tool or the bunch of the tool to give that the chart MRTG chart to that end user that these are those type of the activities that has been performed by this network system or your localized system. So having those type of the things that can be claimed that the system are more protected and least vulnerable through least vulnerable from the various type of the attacks. So I stop over here and if you have any questions you may ask.
Participants, if you are having any question, you can put up in chat box. So since there are no more queries, we can conclude the session. Thank you, sir, for such wonderful insights. So there is a question.
Hello, Monica. If we use SDN, so is there any chances to mitigate uh, distributed denial of service? Okay, pertaining to this, that denial of service would rely on that in that the distributed type of that networking environment. DNS means a denial of service implies that the system is should be who is vulnerable or is creating the nuisance. In that case, that the controller would identify that this particular node is creating a false messages, false data, synthetically generating the data. In that case, that the controller would stop that. So there is a controller over that. There is another layer of OpenStack, you used to look into this flow of the information, and that would give that suggestions to the controller for that. So in this way, we can attack, we can mitigate such type of the attack in the secure and the software defined network, because in the SDN, all those protocol stacks that are constantly being monitored, and the packet which are being injected synthetically, if some application which are being initiated, it will say that this are not been initiated through that application. Some other application is injecting that, and that is the other artificially injected, and controller identify that, and it will just trigger that either the node or that entire channel would be cut off.
Are there any more queries? You can write it in the chat box. Okay, so it seems there are no more queries. So we can conclude the session. Thank you for such wonderful insights on cloud intrusion.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So tomorrow's all the participants note that tomorrow's session will start at sharp 9:30. So please join accordingly.